My friends, welcome to another episode of Diner Talks with James. I'm James, and I'm super pumped to be here with you all. Thank you so much for kicking it with me. Y'all, slide into the booth. I'm excited to have you. Friends, I think we're going to switch some stuff up here in Diner Talks in the next few weeks. I think we're going to take a little bit of a break potentially. I got to talk to my podcast people, see what's happening because we just got a lot of things happening in our lives right now. We're really excited. We're going to expand our business, trying to expand our family. We got some things popping right now. But don't you worry, it won't be going too far. And as always, I want to hear your thoughts about what kind of episodes you want to hear, what kind of guests you want to hear. Are you enjoying the format that we've been exploring? So feel free to always let me know. I'm James at jametrobo.com. That's the email address. I would love to hear from you. But enough about that. Let's talk about today and who we got here in the diner both right now. My boy, Rich Gasaway. What's going on, my man, Rich? He's widely considered the trusted authority on human factors, situational awareness, and the high-risk decision-making processes used in high-stress, high-consequence work environments. He served 33 years on the front lines as a firefighter, EMT-Paramedic, company officer, training officer, fire chief, emergency incident commander. He's done a couple of things. His skin has been in a few risky places. His doctoral research included the study of cognitive neuroscience to understand how human factors, flaw, situational awareness, and impact high-risk decision-making. In other words, this guy knows why you chose how much peanut butter you put on your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Okay. I'm just saying he's about the high risk stuff, the heated things. He's authored 6 books, and his training programs have been delivered to more than 90,000 students worldwide. He is a great man, and I am super excited that he and I have recently become friends because I just love talking to him, and I'm excited for you to hang out with us in the diner. Let's bring him out. My man, Dr. Rich Gasaway. How you doing, sir?
James, I was expecting you disappointed me. I was expecting you to say, "Let's get ready to rumble." That's just where my mind went when you were starting out, and it's like, okay, we're getting in the ring.
We are getting in the ring. I'm holding up the number 1. I'm walking around in a bikini. I look great.
Oh, some things you can't unsee.
You're right. You are right, and you are welcome, both.
Well, it's nice to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you, man. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you.
Rich, this show is called Diner Talks with James. I believe that the best conversations we have in life are the ones that happen late at night that we didn't expect, with the friends we never want to leave over the food that we probably shouldn't be eating. And so I'm wondering if you and I were hanging out late at night, what would be your late night move if you had to choose something? What would you get late at night to eat?
Well, it's a toss up between a couple of things. One, it would either be a big old fat juicy cheeseburger if the place was right.
Yeah.
And otherwise it was like a greasy diner. I just might get like a full on breakfast, even at midnight, and just get the pancakes and bacon and eggs and just have my breakfast before I go to bed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's called efficiency, I think, right?
Yeah, right. That way I can sleep in because I won't be hungry in the morning.
Exactly. Yeah. Set your alarm back another 45 minutes.
What are you going to eat? Yeah. I mean, we have to pair our meals. Is that what dudes do? No, they don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They don't do that.
We're going to Lady and the Tramp the dill spear. For both of our hamburgers. It's funny. I was just telling you before we hit the recording button that I moved to Minnesota recently, and just in the last couple of years, and I was surprised. Most places that I order burgers around here do the smash patties, and I love a good smash patty burger. But I mean, back in New York, smash patties were very rare to get, but they're the norm out here. Yeah. And so it's caused me to grow my burger knowledge. Do you like more of like what they call a steak burger, where it's a little bit thicker, or do you like the smash patties?
Yeah, no, I like the steak burger.
Yeah, me too. I like knowing I'm biting into something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's easier to cook. It's easier to cook the temperature that way also.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I also love this breakfast. I love this breakfast for late night meal option too. The pancake. That's usually where I'm going. I'm going pancakes, maybe eggs scrambled with cheese. But here's what I want you. I want you to let people in. A little secret about you, and I'll share mine if you share yours. But now when you put a little syrup on your pancakes, is some of that syrup getting onto the sausage or onto the eggs, or are you keeping those separate?
It's getting onto the meat. It doesn't get onto the eggs, but it gets onto the bacon or the sausage. Yeah,
that's just a pro tip. That's a pro tip.
Yeah, right.
I love it. I love it. I miss late night diners living here in the Twin Cities. There's a couple. Mickey's is open late, and obviously there's Perkins and a couple places like that. But there's nothing. I mean, you've been to New York. You showed me a great picture behind you of you working with FDNY. So you know what a great New York diner is. More mirrors than you knew existed, and open 24 hours. So I miss those experiences.
Yeah. You're not gonna find that too many places in the Twin Cities. Well, you might somewhere, maybe in Minneapolis, but St. Paul pretty much rolls the streets up at 9 p.m.
Yeah. It's the capital only for 18 hours a day or something.
Right.
12,
exactly.
12 hours a day. Yeah. That's awesome. Now, are you born and raised out here in Minnesota, or where are you from originally?
No, I grew up in northern West Virginia, about 25 minutes from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So there's a little piece of West Virginia that kind of juts straight up if you ever look at it on a map. And I lived in that city that within 5 minutes you could go from Ohio to West Virginia to Pennsylvania in about a 5-minute span of time. And so I started out in the Pittsburgh area and lived there till I was 28.
Oh, okay. So you spent some time in that area for sure.
Yeah.
Did you move from small town West Virginia? Did you move towards Pittsburgh? Did you actually live in Pittsburgh?
No. I lived in the town that I grew up in until I moved to Ohio.
Yeah. I got some friends on the other corner, I would say, on the southern border, over in Morganton in West Virginia. So, Morgantown.
That's where
Morgantown,
I went.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's where I went to school.
Okay, you went to WVU. Nice.
Yep. Yeah.
Great school.
Yep.
Terrible sports. And
good at partying.
Great at partying. Consistently ranked top 5.
Consistently. Hey.
That's it.
Freshman year, best 3 years of my life.
Let's go even back further past freshman year. Tell me, growing up, when you were younger, growing up in West Virginia, what did you want to be when you grew up? Because you obviously went on to be a fire chief and a first responder, and that's what a lot of 5-year-olds put on the hat and they pretend like they want to be a fireman because that's a career that they know, and they got these sweet trucks and they're rolling down the street and they're local heroes, right? And so it's something that a lot of young kids want to do, but it isn't necessarily something that everybody continues on to actually then become, obviously. So for you, what was that journey like?
Yeah, that wasn't my story at all.
Great. Perfect.
No, I had really no interest in being a firefighter until January of my senior year of high school. We had a fire at my house, and the fire department responded, and they did such an amazing job and made my family feel so good that I knew right then, because at that point I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know really what I wanted to do. But I knew right then that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to serve people the way they had served my family.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know at the time that it was a volunteer fire department because I didn't really have any interest in it. So when I went and joined, I thought I was going there to get a job if they would hire me, but actually it was volunteer. And so I joined the volunteer ranks of that fire department and was there. That's where I spent my first 10 years. Then when I went to college at WVU in Morgantown, I joined the fire department that was in the city adjoining Morgantown. and I was a volunteer there for the whole time I was in college too. So I was actually serving on 2 fire departments. But to complicate that, in both cities, both my hometown and where I went to school, the EMS service was separate. So I became an EMT, and then I went to night school. And while I was going to day school at WVU, I went to night school and became a paramedic. So then I joined the EMS service in both my hometown and in, well, it was Montague County, which is where Morgantown is. So I was serving 2 fire departments, 2 EMS services, and occasionally even going to class and, and trying to learn something formally while I was in college. But it was a lot of fun. I was learning a lot. As you look back, you think about that time that was kind of like your defining moments of, geez, if I'd have known that these were some of the best times of my life, I might have appreciated them more in the moment. I don't know if we really do that or not, but
sounds good. Sounds real good though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds good when you get older. But they really were some of the best times of my life, and I was learning a lot and really, really having a lot of fun. Even though it's risky work and it sometimes can really suck to see the worst of humanity under certain circumstances. It really is very rewarding and a lot of fun. And really some of the best people that I've ever met were police officers and firefighters and EMS responders. It's really been a blessed life to start that early. And so that's essentially what I've done for my entire adult life.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I have to stretch, call myself adult when I'm doing that.
Sure, yeah. I can edit that part out.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Beep.
I don't bleep anything else. Any other word you want to say is fine, but I'll cut.
Okay. Yeah, bleep that adult word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So you're a volunteer paramedic at home and in this county, and you're a volunteer firefighter at home and in this county.
Yep.
I mean, we really got to work on your selfishness. This is getting out of control. I didn't think we were going to have to call you out here. But no, that's incredible. So, but it's fascinating that, that it wasn't until this moment where you had no idea what you wanted to be when you grew up. I mean, I'm sure you had some fun ideas here and there that bounced around, fleeting ideas, but then it wasn't until this pinnacle moment where your family's house catches on fire and the way that the responders came and showed up for you and your family, emotionally and physically, I'm sure, really was transcendent for you.
Yep.
Before then, as a younger kid, were you playing sports? Were you like, what were you doing?
Yep. I had a brother who was just 2 years older than me, so pretty much everything we did growing up, we did together, but with other friends, and. I played what we'd call Little League baseball, basketball. When I got in high school, I was on the golf team, the tennis team, and those were the main sports that I did, through youth.
So you did all the things, and which is great, right? Yeah, I also played a little high school golf, and I tried out for the basketball team every year. Never made it. I don't want to talk about it, but because this jumper is silky. Okay, Rich, silky jumper, but it's funny. I made the cut every time, but then when actually the second cut, the one who actually made the team, every time I just didn't get. It was always in like 5 or whatever. Just didn't get it in. But anyway, we don't need to talk about that. It's not about my trauma. Let's talk about yours. No, no.
Do I need to lay down?
Let me start this soothing music for you. No, so that's awesome. You had an older brother, and are you still close with your older brother?
Not all that much. I mean, we talk fairly often, like texting back and forth, but we don't really get together and do things. He still lives backward in the town that we grew up in, as as everybody does, I'm the black sheep. I moved away. As they would say, I left the valley.
Yep.
And nobody does that, but I did.
Yeah.
So he's still there, and we chat fairly regularly, but we don't really get together too much.
Yeah.
Life
has happened.
Yeah, our lives kind of just grew apart.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, take me back to you're at WVU, your first year. Yep. You didn't know what you wanted to do. You found a passion in first responder life.
Yeah.
Was at that time, did it feel like, was it a hobby and you were majoring in finance, or were you starting to kind of go that even direction with some of your schooling? Like, what were you studying at that point?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, James, because I majored in finance.
Did you really?
I did. Yeah. Well, because that was all volunteer work, I knew I'd have to do something to, pay the bills, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, at that time, I really, strangely, didn't have an ambition to have the fire service be a career. I was very content being a volunteer.
Yeah.
So I majored in finance, and when I graduated from WVU, I actually went to work in banking and worked my first 6 years of my full-time work post-graduation was in banking.
Yeah.
But as time went on, I would be sitting there in the bank and I'd hear a fire truck go down the street. And I think to myself, I'm supposed to be out there, not in here.
Yeah.
And so at the age of 28, I started applying for fire chief's jobs because I'd been in the business for 10 years, and throw onto that the bank so generously paid for me to get an MBA, thinking that I was going to stick around. Sorry. So with the MBA and the 10 years experience, I started applying for fire chief's jobs, and I landed one in Ohio, and I quit the bank and started. That was 1989.
Okay.
And I started my full-time service in 1989 at a department just outside of Akron, Ohio.
Wow. So prior to that point, you were only volunteering.
Yep.
It was only volunteer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's incredible. We in my hometown, we definitely had some volunteer firefighters. And then we also, I believe we had some full-time firefighters as well. It was a mixture, in our hometown. And I believe, but for you, I guess, or if you could just to teach us a little bit about that,
Sure.
What is the life of a volunteer firefighter look like? Is it no matter what you're doing, if the if the pager goes off, the beeper, if the phone goes off, are you like, I got to leave my teller job and get out on the road? Or is it, do you have shifts that you're sitting at the house, or what does that world look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a lot of variation as to what it looks like. There are basically three classifications when it comes to those who do it less than full time. There's the true volunteer. You do it for no pay. You carry a pager, and if you're able to respond when there's a call, like if you're at work and your company allows you to leave, well, then you can leave. But if your company doesn't allow you to leave, well, then you just don't leave during work. That's a true volunteer. Then there's what's called paid on call or paid for call. So you're not paid anything, usually like for training, you're not paid, but if there's a call and you respond, you get pay, usually not very much,
Right.
At the time it would have been like, $2 an hour to it would be your pay. Basically it was to cover gas and incidentals and things like that.
Sure. Yep.
And then there's true part-time, where you would work like a shift on duty, but they're part-time hours. So you're not really, it's not really your career. It's just part-time work that you do. So depending on which variation of that you have, and I'd say probably all three of them would carry pagers and then be on call. So it was, you never knew because I was a true volunteer, you never knew when the call was going to come in, and you tried to remain, you kind of get to the point where you've almost fashioned your life around being available for fires. I always said I never wished a tragedy on anybody. I only wished that if the fire was going to occur, that I'd be available to respond and help out. That was my wish, just to be able to be there and to contribute. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say this, James. In fact, if she heard it, she'd probably scold me for it. So when I joined my hometown fire department, that's where I met my wife of now 38 years. So she was already on the fire department when I joined.
Oh, wow. Incredible.
Yeah. So I say she immediately and madly fell in love with me, and she has a different rendition. And I always tell mine, and she always rolls her eyes.
Well, if she's not on this podcast, your story's right, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And,
if she wants to be a guest, though, let me know so I get the truth.
No. That's entirely unnecessary. So as we would, do things together, we'd go out to eat. We both, carried the pagers, and we both had our gear. And if there was a call, we really both wanted to go. So it was really not a rub or an inconvenience, or it never made either of us angry to have to get up from dinner or leave a movie or leave a family event that we were there together. We were both kind of pretty well bit by the bug of service, and it was not anything that, we never looked at each other and said, should we go or should we didn't go? It was just a matter of fact that we were going to respond. And, so she was also a member of the EMS service. So I served 2 agencies in the hometown. She served the same, 2 agencies in the hometown. So we were both very, very committed to it. And I think that's probably helped me through my whole career, because then when I became full-time, she stepped away from it. We started having the family, and but that made for her to be very understanding of the hours and the commitment and the up in the middle of the night. And I never got the do you really have to go kind of lecture on my way out the door or anything like that. She really did understand. It's I'll tell you one of the things that I tell folks that I personally, if you're a responder, you find humor in it. If you're not, I don't know if you would. But when I first, I say when I first joined, that and I got married, that when the pager would go off in the middle of the night, if I went, my wife didn't, she'd say, do you have to go? Well, yeah, I gotta go. Then, after 5 years of marriage, when the pager would go off in the middle of the night, she'd say, be very careful and come back. Our kids are depending upon you. And then after 20 years of doing it, and the pager would go off in the middle of the night, she'd say, turn that damn thing down. And then when I'm going out the door, and she'd say, bring home a gallon of milk. So, the passion for it wanes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep. It's funny how things are still work, right? It's still a job. It's still, no matter what you're doing, it's still work.
Right.
But that is, it's beautiful what you said, that your wife was in the department before you joined even. Because there is that immediate values lock. Like we both have very similar values, and it's almost no doubt around it. I mean, it's not to say that everybody who gets into that line of work is in it for the exact right reason. Some people like power and glory and want to be seen as someone who is a savior, and but that's not most of the individuals that are in the work. Most of the people are, as you said, doing the right thing for the right reasons for whomever may need it. And so that's a beautiful place to meet someone and be like, well, I already know you're a good person. Right. So we're halfway there, right? Now can you stand me? And if you can, then
I won't tell you how long I had to do the dance to get her see my worth, but
sure, yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it happened right away.
There you
So
go.
that's
There
how
you
it
go.
worked for me, at least. So,
Sure.
you know, the work of a first responder is one that so many people are grateful for in theory, but as far as in the moment, there's a lot of gratitude and like, thank you so much for what you did, and it's beautiful. It's a fascinating role, because in many ways it is a thankful job. It is a job that is thanked, but it's also a thankless job, because people don't understand what you've seen and what you've been through. And as you joined and started responding to your first emergencies, whether it was as an EMT or as a firefighter, I would assume the attrition rate, it drops off pretty quickly after the first couple of things, depending on what people have seen. Or maybe it doesn't. I'm not entirely sure, because some people realize that, oh, I'm not cut out for this. And other individuals realize I am cut out for this.
Yeah.
What was it for you in the beginning? How did you know, oh, this is something that I really want to keep doing?
Yeah. When I took one of my first, what I would call intense firefighting training courses, they were gonna light some hot fires, and we were gonna have to go in and do simulated searches, and they have mannequins in there to find and pull out and such, and fight the fire. And I remember the instructor telling the students, because we were all really quite new at it.
Yeah.
And we'd all taken classroom lessons for probably a month or two before we got to do this crucible type, capstone event. And he said, this is where the rubber meets the road. He says, after today, he said, you'll either love this and want to do it for the rest of your life, or you'll gently try to find your way to bow out and go do something else. It is either in you or it's not. And if it's not, you'll leave, or you'll just learn to tolerate that level of danger and risk. And if it's in you, because not, I would say that most people, this, kind of like a joke within the industry, most people, when a building catches on fire, they run away from the fire, the building on fire.
Yep.
We run toward it, like police officers. Well, most people are running away from the danger. Police officers run toward the danger.
Yeah.
And there's just something inherently, I'm going to talk about them, not myself. Something inherently heroic about the people who choose to run toward danger.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a special gift that those people have that just allow them to be, the service above self kind of thing, that you're just so willing to give of yourself. And after that day, because you don't know, because he tells you we won't know till the end of the day, and I at the beginning of the day, I remember thinking, is this going to be where I bow out or where I go all in? And it was, it only took the first fire to come out from having, knocked that fire down. We found the victim, pulled the victim out, and it was just like, this is it. This is my calling.
Right,
yeah. And I never thought twice about it for the rest of my life. Never did I think, geez, I might have made a bad decision. No.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
One of my friends here in the cities lives a few doors down, and he's a neighbor who we've taken a kin to each other, and we'll smoke cigars in each other's garages, and just a good man. And he's at EMT of just I think 12 or 13 years here in the city. He's first responder, great man. And I was I'm fascinated by the work that he does. And I've had a few other EMTs in my life, as we talked about off beforehand as well. A number of police officers in my family, and so, but it's not a life I live. So I hear stories. And one thing he was talking about that I wanted to ask you about was, he said another thing that determines how long someone often stays in the business is their ability to not take work home with them. And now in other fields, taking work home with you means like, well, I got the company laptop, I got to go crunch some emails after the kids go to bed. But in your line of work, and those heroes line of work that you were talking about, taking work home with them is the faces, the stories, the emotions, the what ifs, the if onlys, all of those kinds of things. And those are some really hard things to carry. He made the joke, and I don't believe that this is true for anybody, but it's probably his way of coping. I'm sure it's a coping mechanism. He's like, well, I got a black heart, so I don't, he's like, I'm fine. I don't think about anybody after I leave. It's like, clearly you don't have a black heart. You're doing this incredible role. And so that was clearly a coping sentence that he has come up with for himself. But I wanted to talk to you about that, because this is a field where I would find it impossible, as someone who oozes empathy. You're welcome. But as someone who oozes empathy, to not take some of that stuff home. How do you have conversations with folks, or how is that for you as you talk and work with first responders?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say about that is that a lot of responders find difficulty in that coping, and post-traumatic stress and first responder suicide is near epidemic. Although you never hear about it unless you know someone that it has happened to. And within the inner circles, we hear about it a lot. We have feeds that send that information out, widely when things happen. And I think there are some that cope with it really well, and some that really, really struggle. And so, I'm not here to preach my faith and my faith beliefs to your audience, but I grew up as a person of what I would call strong faith, and I always looked at everything that I did as it was all part of a plan of a greater being.
Yeah.
And if I was supposed to be there and I was supposed to save them, then it was to happen. But if I was supposed to be there and I wasn't supposed to save them, then it wasn't really my choice. It wasn't a result of my doing. So I never felt personally responsible for someone's bad outcome. Although I will say that I did feel a lot of elation for people's good outcomes that we were able to help to facilitate. But the downside of this, well, you get to do a lot of cool things. And if you're in the business, you say a lot of fun things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of not enjoyable things. You see a lot of tragedy. You see a lot of people that are really hurt bad physically and emotionally. And I don't want to go into any of the detail of it. I James, I was with we're both members of the National Speakers Association, and I was with a group of those speakers after we had one of our get-togethers like you and I had just recently had. And we got together and had lunch, and one of them said, "Tell me about the worst call you ever went to." And I said, you don't want to know. Yeah. And he's like, no, I really do. And I said, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I really do. And I said, well, when everybody leaves, I'll tell you what it is. If you really feel like you have to know. I said, but I don't want to ruin everybody else's lunch.
Yep.
by having that discussion. I said, I can't even believe you would ask a question based in such morbidity, that, because it's going to be a tragic story. Why would you even want to know that? And he insisted on it. So, later after everybody left, we were out of the parking lot, and I told him, and then he said, "Wow, I'm sorry that I asked." And it's like, I figured you would. I figured you would be.
Yeah.
But some really do carry it on their sleeve and take it home with them, and it affects them physically and emotionally. I count my blessings that I have never been one of those people. Now, I don't want to give the appearance that I'm calloused. I've cared very much in the moment. I even went to the funerals of some of the people who died in my arms to pay respects to their family.
Yeah.
But I never felt personally responsible for the outcome. It's like I did the best that I could with the resources that I had and the circumstances that were dealt to us. And, tomorrow will be another day to make a difference.
Yeah.
And some people are good at that, and some people really struggle with that. And I guess you never know whether you're going to be good at it or not, good at coping or not, until you have to cope with it.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make those people good or bad people, or just, it is what it is.
No.
And you got to listen to your body and listen to your mind and know what you need and know what your limits are.
Yeah.
And Rich, I don't think anybody listening to this who anybody who's ever spent even moments with you would ever hear you as callous, right? The shakiness in your voice. You got other things that make you a dick, but this
big list. Well, we're not going there, are we?
No, we're not. Okay. No, that's the second half of the show. No, but no, I mean, honestly, right? Like, I mean, the emotion in your voice, and the way that you speak about your fellow heroes, and it's all aligned with the man that you are, and the work that you do and the calling that you answered. And so and I'm so grateful that you called attention to the first responder suicide rate. That's something that my neighbor Dave and I were talking about, because you're right, we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad that you brought light to that. But yeah, I can only imagine. And it's so funny how different careers have these questions that people are just like go-to questions. Like, oh, you're a soldier, how many people did you kill? It's like, what are we doing out here? It's like, why, right? Like, oh, you're a fire, what's the worst fire you ever saw? Oh, you're a police officer, what's the worst? The worst? Like, you don't, and the way you said it is beautiful. You don't want to know.
But James, I think it's the same thing that when somebody drives by a terrible traffic accident, that they turn and look like they want to see it. They want to see. I can't explain why they would want to see it. I've seen enough of it that I turn away. I don't want to see it. But I've seen plenty of people that slow down, and when they want to, they're looking over, they want to see it, and it's like, there's some things you don't want to see. You don't want to see it. I mean, it's not like the movies. It's it's
you have more things that you cannot unsee than I would ever want to see. For sure. And you brought up another point. You hinted at it just in this last response, and you talked about it earlier too, where you get to see the best and the worst in humanity. And especially in the work that you do, you have to respond to individuals who have been through some stuff, who are going through some stuff. Some individuals who have made choices that have led them to this exact moment, and some other individuals who have not made choices that got them to this moment, but just because of the systems, or just because of a lack of systems, or either way, that's got to be fascinating for you as you show up on the scene and as you hear stories of some of these folks. We're talking to homeless individuals when oftentimes they're overlooked or or just passed on, right? I mean, you've had stories with folks who are in the middle of not being cared about by society. And you're also talking to individuals that have made a whole bunch of choices that, like I said, led them to where they are. That's gotta, I'm the question in here that I'm eventually going to wind up at is there are some fields that could really make you see the worst of humanity, and you have seen the worst of humanity on both sides play out on specific individuals. By the way, some individuals have just been forgotten about or never had policies that were written to take care of them or never given services or help. But then you've also seen the worst of humanity by people who make really mean, cold-hearted choices or really dumb choices, hurtful, selfish things. So as you think about humanity and what you've seen, what do you make of it? Are you hopeful for humans? Do you still see like, hey, we got a chance? Or has a lot of this stuff jaded you to where you're like, where sometimes you want to say, well, if you really knew people, then you wouldn't think X.
Yeah. Boy, you ask good questions. I'm not jaded. I do remain hopeful because of this. Every sinister, mean-spirited, malcontented action that I have seen has been more than amply offset by citizens displaying acts of compassion and even heroism, before we even get to the scene. The things that they do, that they're trying to make a difference, even if they don't know what they're doing. They're trying to do something. Sometimes it doesn't really help the situation, but you can't replace the fact that in their heart they're doing something that is trying to help their fellow man.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I, as you were kind of doing the setup for this, is I was thinking is I learned really early on, and I don't remember who the teacher was that told me this, but it was really really golden. They said, Rich, don't ever judge the people by the chapter of their life you happen to stumble into when you respond to a call.
Woo!
Because there's a lot of backstory, be that somebody who's a heroin addict or somebody who's homeless or somebody who's, the living situation that they're in is really run down. It's, there was a time when they weren't where they are now. And through choices, maybe they made consciously or maybe they made circumstantially, they are where they are now, but they didn't start here. This is where they are today. And show them the compassion that you can be professional and care for them. And for that little bit of time, that'll make a difference for them. And, you probably won't change their circumstance substantially, if they're drug addicted, but you can still be kind.
Yeah.
You can still hold their hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kindness is always a choice.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to say this one more time for the people in the back. Wait, oh, sorry.
Oh.
You want to take that call? That's fine.
No. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize my ringer was on. I apologize for that. I thought it was your phone.
Who the heck left their phone on? That's awesome. I want to say this one more time for the people in the back, and I want to make sure I got it right too. But you just said that your teacher told you don't ever judge the people by the chapter of their life you happen to stumble in on.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow, that ain't that the truth with everything.
Yeah.
I could think of times where I've certainly judged people in the moment. And
Yeah.
some of that's human instinct, right? Some of that's attached to our fight, flight, and freer or fear, freeze. That thing is sometimes why we judge, right? We do it out of safety. But the next level of it is, that's gold, man. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So you went ahead and got your doctorate work in this space, not your average firefighter's journey. But you said, hold my beer. And and what we talked about earlier when I was reading your introduction is that your doctoral research is about the study of cognitive neuroscience to understand how human factors flaw situational awareness and high impact risk decision making.
Yeah.
Here's what I need you to do. I need you to put that in simple person's terms, right?
Yeah.
What did you study and why did you study it?
Yeah. Let's start with the why. I was seeing a lot of first responders getting hurt and killed, making bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not dumb people. They were really smart, well-trained, talented people, but in the moment, under stress, time compression, changing conditions, things were going off the rails. And I wanted to understand why and how can we fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what compelled me toward the journey of that field of study. And over those 5 years, what I was able to be introduced to was situational awareness, mostly a term from medicine, aviation, and the military. And it really wasn't a term used very much in the fire service at that time. And what I studied was the barriers that flaw situational awareness. So there's over 100 of these barriers that can flaw situational awareness. And some of it depends on the environment that a person's working in or the type of work that they're doing. And, situational awareness in a factory is different than maybe somebody that's a highway worker or working in a surgical suite or on a flight deck. But I focused on the different aspects of first responder situational awareness and how it's used as the foundation for high risk decisions. And those barriers are what I uncovered or created a list of and researched those. And so that was the big finding. And when I presented it to the fire service, people responded well to it and said, this is important. This is stuff we've never been taught. And you'd think in the business that we're in that it would be among the first things that we're taught. But even firefighter training programs to this day don't teach much about situational awareness and how it's used to make high risk decisions. And it disappoints me, but it also gives me hope that I think I can make a difference there. So I'm driven.
Yeah.
I tell folks that I put content out there, and I put content out there in every way except sticking a note in a bottle and corking it up and sticking it down the river. And if I thought somebody would read the note in the bottle and learn something, I'd do that too.
Yeah.
Every possible way to reach somebody, I think just about every possible way I have out there, and most of them are completely free.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody doesn't even have to spend money to get my message. It's all out there for free. I don't want their money. I just want their time.
Yeah.
And if they'll just give me a gift of time, I'll teach them everything they need to know about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. When I hear about this message, having never been a first responder, I'll apply to something. I'll apply it to something that is not comparable, but it's the closest thing I got right now. Besides back when I was an RA in college, and I did deal with a couple of tragedies when I was an RA, and I saw some really tough stuff, and there was a homicide on my floor, and suicide was a thing that happened a number of times, and it's so I was unfortunately, but also fortunately, the leader of a community that went through a couple of really tough things. And so, but it's still completely different compared to what the police were dealing with in that moment, compared to what I, as the RA, was dealing with. So I'm not even going to try to compare that moment to what we're talking about. I want to bring it back to something I'm dealing with a little more currently, which is as a new parent.
Hold on. I want to say that situation's harder on you than it is on me. If I respond to that, you're dealing with somebody that you know. I'm dealing with a stranger. And that makes it harder and more stressful on you, because you, who know the person, are going to say, where there's signs, where there are indicators, where there are things that I should have seen. And you start, all this second guess. I don't do that. I show up and I don't feel any responsibility for what happened unless I know the person. Right. It's the people who are closest to that, like you as the RA, and something like that happening on your floor, that I think the whole situation's a lot more stressful on somebody like you, who is intimate to that situation, than somebody like me who just comes in from the outside and I'm just dealing with the facts of the situation. We can either take, life-saving efforts, or we can't. And, it's very, very mechanical, but it's not, we're not emotionally connected to it. I mean, we feel empathy and compassion, but nothing like the people like you who, maybe had lunch with that person last week. So I just wanted to put that clarity point on it, so we can go on, talk about parenting now.
No. And I appreciate that. I don't think until this moment, I thought about that difference. I think it was always the fact that the police and the paramedics had to go into the room, and see what they saw, and et cetera, et cetera. Because I was the RA of the person who had murdered another resident on our floor. And so I knew both of them well. And I guess I never really thought of it in that way. I kind of just saw myself as someone who was on the team of the first responders, but I can see the difference, and that's a powerful difference. And so I appreciate you highlighting that made me well up a little bit. So thank you.
Got you in the fields.
I don't want to talk about it. Listen, it's about you.
All right, back to parenting.
No, then I'm really gonna cry. This shit's hard. No, no, but still, when it does come to parenting, I think of instincts, right? Like, you can read all the books you want to read. You can do all the things that you want to do. You can watch all the movies. You can get all the advice from everybody who loves to give you advice on what you should be doing with your kid. But in the moment, there's instincts that pop up. There's things that you were taught that you didn't realize you were taught by your parents. There's just evolution that has happened that is inside these pretty incredible bodies of ours, and passed down through our genes, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, when I hear about you trying to encourage individuals to shape their decision-making process in the moment, where in the moment is the instincts that fire. And that sounds almost impossible to me, but at the same time, I notice that I'm doing it in a way lower risk situation of, like, my instincts telling me this, but I know I should probably do this, or I should slow down and do this. But going against someone's natural instincts, especially in the heat of an emergency, especially in the heat of life or death, especially for themselves and whoever they are serving at that moment, that has got to be a hell of an uphill battle to get individuals to work through.
Actually, well,
and feel free to push back on that. This is how I'm hearing it.
I don't try to talk them into countering their instincts,
Mhm.
I try to talk them into following their instincts and following their intuition and using the collective of their unconscious knowledge, because the unconscious knowledge database is a whole lot bigger than the conscious knowledge database. And the unconscious is all of evolution and everything that we've learned, our upbringing, and that subconscious information can be can trigger intuition, which can give somebody, the gut feeling or the hair stand up on the back of their neck, or maybe even that little internal voice in their head might start talking to them like, hey, this doesn't seem like a good idea, kind of thing. And I think where most people get in trouble, especially first responders, because I've interviewed a lot of them on my show, is they don't trust their gut. They don't trust their intuition. They don't trust their instinct because they don't understand where it comes from. And they don't understand why they're getting all knotted up where in fact that getting knotted up is a connection of subconscious stores of knowledge that say, this is a dangerous situation. And it might be based on an article that they read 10 years ago, or a video that they watched 10 years ago, or a class that they took 10 years ago. And they don't even have a memory of the class.
Yeah.
But the lesson is still buried there in their knowledge stores, and it can come to the surface and guide them toward an action. And I think most of our instinct drives us toward doing things geared towards self-preservation. Although, and this is where firefighters and police officers run counter to the average person. I think the average person, anthropologists would say that we were, and during the course of evolution, wired to really focus on four things. They call them the 4 F's: fighting, feeding, fleeing, and reproduction. And I think that the brain is exquisitely designed to help us to make decisions based on survival. If first and foremost do nothing else but survive so that we can live long enough to pass our genes on to another generation. It's genetically ingrained in us to do things for preservation and survival. So I think the average person, if they'll follow their instincts and their intuition, it'll guide them toward doing things to preserve their survivability. And this is where police officers and firefighters run counter to that, which means we're often trudging right over our instincts and trudging right over our intuition and going toward danger when our instincts and intuition would be saying, run, run away. And there we are running toward, which kind of puts us in a weird dichotomy of not knowing which instincts to trust and which not to, because we trudge over them so often that then it transitions to everyday life, and we find ourselves. It's well known that first responders tend to engage in much more riskier behaviors in their off time, partly driven by the adrenaline. We become adrenaline junkies. We become dopamine addicted, and we tend to drive fast cars and motorcycles and rappel off cliffs and do these crazy things that most people would say are crazy things, and we just do it just for fun because it's risky and we're cheating the devil, and that's what we do at work, and we kind of enjoy being in that flow of doing risky things and winning. And we hope we'll win, and sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, but
for sure.
A lot of first responders live life to the fullest. And I think it's a callback to the type of environments that they work in and day out that lead them to be more risk averse or more risk tolerant. Not
yes.
Tolerant. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating to think about. And yeah, you said first responders are out here, getting that high elsewhere as well after their shifts are done,
Yeah.
or before them. Yeah, the idea of one thing that struck me when you and I first met, when we were, a cliche question that speakers always ask each other is, what do you talk about, right? Or what's your topic area? And you said something to me where I forget exactly how you put it. You'll correct me here in a second, but you said if someone's not at risk of dying, they're not my client. Right. And so, you talk about how you work with police officers and you work with fire departments and even some EMTs and I'm sure you've done some stuff with the military.
Yep.
Right.
And even industry, there's lots of industries where workers are at risk.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You were talking about working with people on the lines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so, giving back to that community is incredible. I'm wondering how often do you go into these places and blow people's minds because your research is so unique, because it is so not a lot of people are talking about it, as you said, and I want to give this away to everybody. But have you found that most individuals do they what happens after they see you speak? Because Rich came in and did this, I now, as someone who is in these super risky situations or potentially facing death or dealing with death, I now know that I can blank or that I should blank because of my time with you.
Yeah. So, as I'm teaching about the barriers to awareness, I've developed some exercises that demonstrate these things that can happen. Because if I'm in front of a group of people, and some of them can be quite skeptical, especially the blue collar people that are no nonsense, no BS kind of folks. So when I tell them, under the right stressful circumstances, you can go deaf and you can go blind and you can tell lies and not even realize you're telling lies. And I think a lot of them think, yeah, you know what, that's a good theory. That's good. Yeah, that's good neuro theory, but that'd never happen to me. I'd never do that. I've never done that, and I would never do that. And then I do my my exercise, and there they are going deaf, blind, and telling me lies. And then when I'm done, they're like, oh, crap. I never ever thought that would happen to me. And then I say, it's happened to you a lot. I just brought it to the conscious level here. And when they experience that firsthand and then understand the backstory or the back lesson, here's, it's one thing to demonstrate. It's not hard to trick someone's brain. Magicians do it all the time. They're not really sawing their assistant in half on stage. They're not doing that.
Wait,
there are laws against that, James. Laws.
I'm pretty sure.
Look in the books. There's a law there that says you can't saw somebody in two, even if you think you can put them back together again. So if you understand how the brain can be tricked by illusion, it's not hard to trick someone. Actually, it's really the magician isn't tricking you. Your brain is tricking you. They're just setting up the environment for that to happen. But once these things happen and the brain is tricked, then it's important to teach them why, and then give them tips about how to keep it from happening. How, some ideas, some best practices. And I think many of them are pretty amazed at their own vulnerability as humans, because no one's really ever pointed it out. I mean, like we talk about mind drift. James, have you ever gotten a car driven 2 hours somewhere and part of that trip you don't remember? Yes. Then you've experienced mind drift, and you're doing highly risky work, traveling down the highway at 70 miles an hour, and your mind drifts away. You're not really paying attention to driving. So with that, I would explain what is happening, how it happens, why it happens, how you continue to drive the car without getting into an accident where you're not even paying attention to driving, then relate it to what happens at work when your mind drifts, and then what you can do that are tips and best practices about how to manage that situational awareness barrier of mind drift. So it's a combination of teaching and then a exercise that puts them in awe and then brings them back down and comforts them with, here's some things you can do to not have bad outcomes, you know. So it's kind of like a recipe for you know, build them up, let them experience it. They fall to their deepest depths of holy crap, that really just happened to me, and then bring them back by saying, but here's some things you can do at work to not let, you know, to help keep these things from happening to you. One of the funniest things that somebody ever said to me was after a program, and he says, you know, if you did that final exercise to build my confidence, you did a really crappy job. Yeah, because they didn't do so good on the exercise, you know. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, I understand that, but I said, just, you know, keep the best practices in mind, and, you know, that's your takeaway. And yeah, it's tough because I think people think they could take one class on situational awareness and all of a sudden be ninja skilled at it, and that's not how it works. It's not, you know, situational awareness is a mindset, not a class you take.
Yeah,
you know, and people that want the quick fix, the easy, it doesn't come with, you know, there's no magic elixir for situational awareness. I mean, there's a process for it, but it's a process that you have to develop and practice and continually hone over time, and you can get really good at it, yeah. You know, and ninja skill level with it, and when you do, you know, and I don't want anybody to think that means that they're you know, they got on the street and they're paranoid, right? Because that's not the level of fear that we want somebody to have in any circumstance, you know. But we do want them to be vigilant, and how you develop that vigilance and maintain it, and how the vigilance goes up and down depending on the circumstances that you're in and the risks that's around you and things like that it's all teachable for the person who wants to learn it. And, you know, I'd like to think that it helps them make better decisions. That's, you know, the foundation of good decisions is understanding the situation that you're going to be making the decision around.
Yep.
Duh.
Yeah. Yeah. An accurate description of the problem is often 80% of its solution, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Really understand it. And then that'll, you know, oftentimes guide you to a better decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You know, Rich, I love the way that you put that. Our brains are brilliant. They are brilliant pattern generating machines. And some of those patterns serve us and some of those patterns do not. Right. And all those patterns have the capability of being disrupted. And that sounds like a lot of the work that you are doing in some of these cases. You're reinforcing some that are there, and you're also trying to disrupt others, just cause attention to it. And call attention to it, excuse me. Yep. And the work that you're doing with the humans that you were doing it for is beautiful, brother. And I'm glad this little world brought us together. And, you know, I know that you mentioned that a lot of your stuff is available and free out there, and it, you know, my audience isn't all first responders. I know we have some first responders that listen to it for sure. Yeah. And one of my former guests, Becky Smoke, her husband is a chief down in Iowa City area. And so I know he's a great man, and she listens to this as well, but still it is still valuable, the information that you share, for people who aren't coming across some of these things. So I would love for you to just let people know, where can they find some of this information, and where can they do a little bit more digging for themselves to realize some of the things that they're facing, or some of the patterns that they don't recognize they're in.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. It's real easy. I have a website that's, the name of the website is Situational Awareness Matters. The URL is SA for Situational Awareness, samatters.com. And when somebody will notice quick when they go there, they first choose, am I in business and industry, or am I a first responder? And it kind of takes them down two different pathways depending on, you know, what where their interest lays. But the most recent book that I wrote was for people in business and industry. It's not a first responder book. It's for the non-responder. It's called How Smart Workers use situational awareness to improve safety. And it's designed for workers. And of course, I do have books for first responders as well. But anybody that goes to that website, and if they go to the blog, there's over 400 articles that I've written on the topic of situational awareness. So they won't run out of things to read. And if you have insomnia, that's a really good place to go when you're laying in bed looking up at your phone. You'll find yourself with your phone smacking you in the face as you fall asleep reading it. And so there over 400 articles and about 390 episodes of the Situational Awareness Matters show as well. And again, all free for someone to consume. And there's a store there. There's some books and videos in the store, but I have an online academy. If somebody really wants to take, the deep dive, it's about 20 hours to really get to that ninja level of understanding of situational awareness. And that's not for everyone. There's some shorter courses on the learning management system, some 90-minute programs and things like that as well. But it's all at that one portal, that's a one-stop place for all of it.
SAMatters.com. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rich, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the man that you are. Before earlier when you were describing some of the situations that you have been in and the men and women that you've had the opportunity to serve next to, you describe them as heroes because it's weird to describe yourself as a hero. So allow me to do you the favor that you did to them, and thank you for being a hero, brother. As uncomfortable as it makes you, I don't give a shit. But I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to I'd love to grab lunch with you sometime, brother.
That'd be fantastic.
I just like you as a man, and I'm excited you're in the world. Thanks for coming to the diner today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'll look forward to when we can go to the real diner.
That's it. It's on.
Okay. All right.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks, James.
Y'all, that was my time with my man, Dr. Rich Gasaway. Woo! I tell you what, he got me fired up. Just so fascinating to think about individuals in those roles that we often take for granted until we need them, or until a loved one needs them, or until it's just, it's really beautiful to hear the way that he described the work that he did, why he did it, how he got into it, how he stays in it. And I will completely and routinely come back to that quote that he shared. Don't ever judge the people by the chapter of their life that you happen to stumble in on. Ain't that the truth for everything? So here's to making better decisions, y'all. And here's to recognizing some of our patterns and how they're helping us and how they're hurting us. I'm really excited for the time that we had today with Dr. Rich Gasaway. And I'm excited we get to hang out with you as well. And until next time, my friends, keep punching small talk in the face by asking better questions. Take care.